Okay, welcome everyone to the Budget Committee meeting. The approval of the agenda.
Who moved?
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Everybody in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. We do have a little time for public comment. I don't know if anybody signed up. I didn't see a sign up letter.
You weren't notified of anybody and there's nobody else on the call.
Okay. Yeah, who wants to go to a boring budget meeting, right? All right, since there's no public comment, we'll move into the discussions. And the first item, well, the only item, but it's first item on the agenda is the preliminary budget meeting. It's different than budget meetings you'll attend later. But this will be, I'll turn it over to Bruce to.
Okay, thanks, Mike. I think we went over this last year, but this is we're calling it a preliminary budget meeting, but technically a budget committee doesn't meet until we have a budget to hand you. And so we are doing this a little bit out of the normal succession on it. And the idea is that we'll just talk about things in generalities. We'll get into the nitty gritty once we get to the regular budget. But with the other process, it didn't seem fair because the budget committee never had a chance to influence the budget. I mean, the budget was done when you got it, and it was just hard to make changes to it. So we want to talk about, a number of issues and seek guidance for those. So what I'll do is turn it over to Lori and Ron and ask them to kind of go through the numbers that we have and that we're projecting, because there's some good news there. Lori?
Okay, I'm gonna get my report up there.
Let's see here. It's not one of the presentations, right?
I thought I gave you my finance report.
Look.
Without it, I guess. There's a copy in the budget file too, on the surface. Okay, I'll start while I'm doing that. So I'm presenting my financial report for the quarter ending December 2021. And so with the year to date, that will be 6 months worth of data so far. I just say right now that I'm happy to tell you that the results are favorable across the board pretty much. And so that's a good thing. Our cash position is very stable compared to the prior year, December 31, 2020. We had 8 million. December 31, 2021, we had $11 million cash. So that's a good sign that things are bouncing back and room tax is flowing in, basically. So if we look at the general fund, you can see that revenues year to date are at 61.3%. And again, driving that is room tax. We also have on line 21 of page 2, the American Rescue Plan grant that came in for $196,350. So that's adding to our coffers. Had an RV park transfer in of $250,000 in the general fund. Franchise fees and the taxes and all the state revenues are coming in as expected. Business licenses have almost hit the $75,000 target. So just with all of those things, we're ending up in a good position. This is on page 4 of the report, the general fund. Are at 46.3 budget, and so it's not over, which is expenditures of 2.3 million, and most of that is the transfers that we made out. And page 3, that's line 20. You can see we transferred out 1.3 million, so that's driving up our expenses in this timeframe. Overall, ending with a 3.3 million ending fund balance, which is excellent. And so on page 4, Tourism and Arts Fund, we awarded $156,710. First payment from the July, August, September room tax receipts. Always glance at all the ending fund balances on this page, and everything is up except for the transient room tax fund. And that's to be expected because we want to collect that money and then we want to pay it to the chamber right away. So you're never going to see much fund balance there. Tourism and Arts, that has, 496,000 available there. We did get a check back from Coaster because they weren't going to do their event. So when we get to page 8, you'll see that that money was returned. It was 4,000.
What is that? Was that Sandcastle?
No.
Or what?
Coaster, what did they do?
Would have been.
I don't know.
There's something would have gone on inside of the building and they couldn't do it, so.
Yeah, concert.
2021 season. I don't know what that means.
They had several different things. I have to peek at their application real quick.
Okay.
There were a couple of concerts that they were going to do that they couldn't do because of the COVID.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Nancy.
County TRT, county paid us in December $314,967. So that's good. Building department is, revenues are great and expenses are in line with the target amounts. Our affordable housing, that is increasing in fund balance. We haven't really utilized any of that money yet. We have $72,666 allocated there to builder incentives. And then the remaining amount is just for the city's affordable housing program as we deem it. RV Park is doing great. We did have a $500,000 transfer out, so you will see that because of that primarily. And 250,000 of that, I said, went to the general fund, and then 250,000 of that went to the RV Park Reserve. Page 5 is where I'm at now. Every fund on this page has an increase in fund balance, so. Fund, it had a transfer in from the general fund of $9,160. That was part of that 1.3 million I discussed earlier. The water fund is meeting the water fees at 54.5% of budget. Wastewater has the same percentage, $796,343 in wastewater fees, and that's at 54.5, like I said. So that's good. Storm drain. That's at 52% for storm drain charges as well. And, expenditures are all under 50%. Road fund, that had a transfer in from the general fund of $746,461. Rather large transfer. And so that brought the road fund ending fund balance. Services, getting property taxes in. And we had an interest payment on December 1st of $49,900. So everything looks good there. Page 6. Administrative Services Fund, revenues always equal expenses. This is where we cost out the overhead deal. Finance, IT, central services, public works. And then we, every month we expense that through all the various funds where we kind of sprinkle that around. July 1, 2021, beginning fund balances. This is interesting because when we're budgeting like I am right now, I have to kind of project out where we're going to be at June 30. And so I try to be conservative, but this almost looks too conservative to me. But like take, for instance, line 1 on the general fund. When I was budgeting back in March of 2021, I estimated we would have about 2.4 million at the end of the year, and we actually ended up with 3.4 million. So that $961 just sat here the whole year and wasn't able to be spent because it wasn't appropriated. So I'm going to try to be a little, I don't know, but I did try to estimate the general fund ending fund balance for this year, and it's looking like 3.2 million, which is a lot of money. And so don't be surprised when you see that. I mean, it's a good thing. And I will double and triple check that number before it goes in the budget. So what happened is we were just so conservative with our budget back in when we were doing this last year. We're still in uncertain times. And so we were all really careful about what we thought we would get for revenues. And we were still kind of like paring down expenses. And so when things turned the other way and we have all this tourism coming in and visitors and propping up our economy, it was just more than we thought. So it just sat there and couldn't be utilized. So we need to try to utilize that now and go forward with it.
So Lori, I have a question on the, when you say the actual 3.4, the actual is for now or for June 30th of 2022?
June 30, 21.
21, okay. And the budget for that year then was 2.4, okay.
Yeah.
And then also, could you explain when you say transfers out, transfers from the general fund to the particular fund that you're talking about? Is that
Yes.
what you're talking about?
Yes.
I just wondered.
We're just like giving them money.
Okay.
Yeah.
We should have a question too.
Hi, thank you for accommodating me remotely. Most of those, you're gaining fund balance, but then something different is going on in the Affordable Housing Fund. And I just wondered if you could speak to that a little bit.
What do you mean by?
Well, we budgeted more than we're actually receiving. And so I just wondered if there was a different dynamic or something special, because I completely sympathize with being conservative. And a year ago, we didn't know what was going on. But in that case, the reverse is true. And I just wondered if there was something different there that we could learn about.
Yeah, there is something different here.
Is that related to the number of units being built?
No.
Okay, I'm sorry.
We had to make a correction because we were not calculating the SDCs correctly.
Yeah.
And that was discovered. So when I was making my estimates, I was basing it on that higher number, not knowing that those revenues were incorrect. And we had to make refunds to the people that paid them in error. So that's what that's about.
And the refunds have all been completed now.
Yes.
Lori, what's happening with franchise fees? I noticed it's one, I think one of the only items that's under budget for the first 6 months.
What happens with those is some of them get paid annually and some of them get paid quarterly. Pacific Power is the only one that gets paid monthly. So we're just waiting for that timing for that
I mean, yeah,
annual amount to come in versus monthly amounts along the way.
that happened last year as well.
Yeah, they're all structured differently, like Charter pays us quarterly.
Hmm.
Northwest Natural pays us annually. So yeah, there's some timing.
Lori, I have a question on line 4, what's up there, on where page that is. Line 4, 5, and 6.
Mhm.
So that's basically the TAC, and then the transient, which is the marketing for the chamber, and then the county, which is the school.
Right.
Do you count those as the 70% of the 1% increase? So like, for example, is that 277 number, is that 70%? Because the county sheriff takes 30%?
No, that's 100% because we divide it up. Whatever share that we belongs to tourism and arts
So,
gets put in there, and then the general fund portion gets put in. So it goes directly into the fund. It doesn't go through a fund.
Lori, I think that you and I had a discussion on this, and that you would think that their number would match ours exactly, because what they're doing is returning the money that was generated here. But don't their funds come in less than what we generate?
You're comparing the county to the
Yeah, to the city.
to the 1% that
Yeah.
percent of the 1% that we
Yeah.
collect.
Oh, I understand.
those 3 funds are all bound by the 70-30 thing.
Correct.
And so in theory, I know the transient room tax line, you paid it out to the chamber for the contract. But in theory, they should all be the same number, which should be 70% of whatever
Right.
goes to the city. The other 30% already goes either to the general fund or to the county or whatever. And my question is that broken out here? Is that the 70% or is that the 100% and not broken out yet? Because, for example, the county fund 30% of it, if that is the number, 30% doesn't go to the city of Cannon Beach at all.
Right. It's 70%.
Okay.
And it's like that in the other 2 funds as well.
So then I guess, why aren't they the same number then?
Okay, because we pay TAF money out differently. We don't pay 100% of it out to all the events. So there's money left in there.
Okay.
But the chamber, whatever amount of money we get each quarter, 100% of that goes out the door to them.
Okay, so this is based on after payouts, but if you were actually looking at the revenues, they should all be the same number?
Yes,
That answers it.
that's how I budget it.
Okay, thank you.
So you can see too on this page on line 14 and 16. We're accumulating some ending fund balance in water and wastewater too, and you'll see that after I do my other PowerPoint presentations. So and the RV park fund too as well. They're sitting on some cash. So try to estimate maybe a little bit better. Page 7. Here's our room tax already. The first 2 quarters are 13% over the 2021 actuals. That's huge, 13%. So I was talking to Brian Olson and Ron over here about how to estimate for next year. And so we have a number in mind, but you'll see that when you get your proposed budget. Page 8. First amount to TAF, $156,710. You can see that on line 17, as well as line 27. And then right in that area there on line, I guess I didn't put a number there, but after the 28th, you can see that Coastal returned some money to us, and we made a loan payment we received a loan payment from the county TRT fund, and we have 1 payment left, which is good.
Purchase of the school properties.
Yeah.
And maybe what, 3 different years divided?
Installments, yeah, 3 annual installments. And then the last page, page 9, I think you can just see how the taxes getting divided up in our funds. And you'll see, Greg, if you look at line 5 and line 8, those 2 numbers are exactly the same amount of revenue coming in. Quarter column, you can see 211.
And then is the 70% for the county portion, because these are 2 city funds, is the 70% going into the general fund? Or
No, it has its own fund.
it has its own fund, but it's not listed here
No, because it's not a city
because
tax.
it's a county tax.
You know, it's kind of like a donation
Makes sense.
from the county. I mean, we're not imposing the tax, but we still have to treat it, you know, according to the rules of tourism tax. Or room tax. Okay, that is it for my finance report.
Thanks, Lori.
Other than the increased revenue over budget, were there any surprises?
No, nothing alarming.
Okay.
It's a really good report. I mean, the data is good.
It's interesting that one of the committees that we have trouble recruiting for is the budget committee. And I think that people think, well, it's all numbers. And to me, it's the most important committee we have because it's all policy. Because what you decide in the budget is what gets done the following year. So I want to talk about some of the things that are coming up. Some of you have heard other reports about this, but we are doing the water supply resiliency project, and that's to get new lines coming down from the springs, the plant to the tank and down, and we need to replace each one of those pieces. The pipes that are up there are very old asbestos concrete pipes. They're brittle, unlikely to survive a seismic event. The tank was put in before we had seismic standards. And if any one of those items fails, then we don't have water in the city. So that's been something that the council said, yeah, go ahead and get that done. And we have funding for phase 1, which is the installation of emergency shutoff valves at each tank. Means that if there's a break someplace in a line, all the water doesn't run out. It goes ahead and says, wait, that much water shouldn't be going. It preserves it at least for the neighborhood. Phase 2, 3.2 million, that's to replace the lines that we talked about, the type of pipe called HDPE. And it's much more resilient and it's flexible and just, whole lot of good characteristics to it. And then part 3, we're seeking funding for part 3, and that's cut into 3 parts. Part 1 is to replace the existing water tank. Part 2 and 3 is to construct new water backbone lines that will go down 101 in each direction. Because right now, water that's going to get to the Tolavon tank flows all the way through the city before it gets there, which means if we're having big problems in the city for whatever reason, we have trouble moving water. So we're trying to get money for that. Staff has done, I thought, a great job working with Business Oregon to get the loans that we have. And they have come with principal forgiveness of up to 50% and 1% for 30 years. And we're kind of at a cusp on when they're saying, well, we're probably going to get rid of that program, but you can apply under it. Or you can apply under the new program, but we don't know exactly what it is. But the new one will have probably better loan forgiveness, but it's going to be primarily for cities that have actual water quality problems. So we might not qualify as well. So we're working with our consultants and with Business Oregon to try to go ahead and sort our way through that. But when we talk about phase 3, it's the lion's share of the funding, and it's like 12.1 million. And we expect the project to be done in 5 to 6 years. So that one we should be well funded if we can find those things, and that'll be a major improvement within the city in terms of making sure that we have water. So that would be good. And I talked a little bit, and this is in your material, but trying to go ahead and follow and apply for these loans is very time consuming. It's very difficult. And so it's taken a lot of staff time. And as we take on new ones, when it comes time to apply for the next one, we're still doing the paperwork on the first one. So we've made a couple of changes. One is that we are contracting with engineering firms for them to do the initial applications for loans and grants. And a great example is Karen's got it started that we're working with an engineering firm to seek a grant to replace the First Street Bridge. It's something we absolutely want to do. We don't have time to do it. And then when we get into the project, we're looking to include in the scope that the engineering firms will do all the federal paperwork that's required with the loans and those sorts of things. So we don't have to add staff to go ahead and do that kind of construction administration. So we're trying to keep staff down by contracting work. And we think we're going to do okay. And the third thing is that there's all other kinds of grants that are available. And we don't have a grant writer, and we don't have, I don't want to have like 4 different departments, each learning how to be a grant writer. But we've decided to start working with CREST, which is the Columbia River Estuary Program, and they're in the grant business. And so we will pay them on an hourly basis to develop grants for us. And so I guess I would call this a grant-rich environment. There's a lot of money that is trying to get on the streets. And we want to take advantage of that as much as we can. We don't want to add headcount to do it. And we think that this will be a decent strategy for us to keep on going down that path. A big project that I'm extremely excited about is we're still calling it the Canon Beach Elementary Rejuvenation Project because it hasn't been called anything else. But at this point, that's what it is. Ultimately, it'll be something else. We talked about that we're making a last payment on the loan, and it's going to be a tourism-related facility. And there's just, when you look at the history of the Travel Village being there, Sacagawea and Clark coming, and then you got all the environmental things, it's a natural for drawing people here, and we want to go ahead and capitalize on that. In fact, one thing that's happening in HRAP is, would you like to talk about that for a second, Kelly? Is she there?
She had to step out.
Okay, it's a program that there's Puffins on the East Coast, there's Puffins on the West Coast. We can talk to each other. And Audubon has agreed to do something to facilitate that if we can come up with funding for a position of like $150,000 or something. And in looking at that, we're going, wow, if we make that investment, and I may bring it up under TAC, but if we make an investment to help with that, then we could become the new place. I think we're competing with Newport now, but for where all the birders come to meet and to have those kind of conferences and things. And when you look at Ecola Park and the ECFR and Haystack Rock and all that, it's just a natural to draw that group of people here, and then possibly others that would come off of that. So when we talk about it being primarily a tourism facility, there's others, people that are here can participate in those kind of activities. And the spaces will be available for rent or borrowing or whatever. And so if they're not being used for something, then, somebody can go ahead and get involved with it. So there'll be very big benefits, I think, for the people that are going to, the folks that live here. Roof systems, those had deteriorated. We were able to get the classroom done. We weren't able to get the gym done because of rigid insulation shortage. We're trying to do that again. It's separate from the contract we're going out for right now with the architects. That's in the hands of an engineer right now. We hope to have the architects on board in the beginning of April, and we're very excited about that. The project is $5.5 million. And the way that we've split it is we didn't want to borrow more than we needed because you're required to use whatever you have left over to pay interest. And so you're using real dollars to pay interest dollars, not taking down your principal. So we split it. And so we said, we'll borrow $4.6 million tomorrow. And if we need additional funding, we can tie it to the City Hall project that would be coming up probably in January of next year. I know you all are waiting to hear what the news is. We just had a phone call and kind of about the interest rates and all those things and what's going to happen tomorrow. And my takeaway was, I wish we did it yesterday, based on what's happening in the market. And I'll send that around to everybody, that report. But there's some good news for us in that our estimates were conservative. We were qualified as, we became bank qualified, which makes us more marketable. We got our rating upped to a AA, all caps. And we were looking at, there's two parts to it. One is the part where we're just getting the loan for the project. And that looks that with the downside of the market going up and the positives that we had and the conservative numbers that we ran, we're in the close to the range that we were considering to make debt service payments. I think we were like 220,000, 230,000 a year. They're projecting 245,000. There was a little bit of a difference, but we're still roughly where we were before. The refunding percent is not as desirable. And so we're down to like the difference being like 58,000. It's still a difference. And we will have a call tomorrow and all of our advisors will be looking and saying, is it still a positive for you or is this going to cost you money? So we're not sure exactly how that's going to come out, but that'll be a decision made tomorrow. The bonds go up for sale at 8 o'clock in the morning until 9:30. Try to catch both coasts. And so that's the Bruce St. Dennis bond report. So anyway, being conservative, I think helps us because, we're not, we're still close to where we want to be and to where it still makes sense.
Do we know what the interest rate is on that? Especially with the change that they're talking about?
We won't know until we get bids, but I will send you the report that they gave us for our call today. And it talks, but I don't understand everything, is that they've got 4 different interest rates. And there's only really one interest rate, but this was about this was about this, what the average is and all that. But we're in the 3s.
Okay, because we were talking about 1%, I think. Right?
Yeah. And I don't think it's gone up a full percent, but I think we were in the 1s and we slipped into the 2s like this morning. So, but it is what it is. It's still, if you look at the chart from like the past 15 years or something, the rest of the charts here, we're still here, even though it's not as good as what it's been in the past, month or so. So anyway, it's, to me, it was so good news. We'll probably still have a go. And so anyway, the City Hall Police Department, we are close to going out for an architect for that. The council will be getting the RFP hopefully within a few weeks to a few months. That'll be the first step for us to go ahead and advertise. We will be asking council again to recommend or to direct us to use CMGC for a delivery method. And so those are some things that will be facing you. And what we'd like to do is to have get them on board early enough so that we can get some solid budget numbers by maybe October. Because remember, from the prepared food tax, we will make the collections from July to the end of October. What's the 3 months? July, August, September. Okay. They don't have to pay it until October.
Right.
And so October 1st will really when we have the numbers, and then we'll go ahead and we'll kind of sort through what it is that we want to do and what position we will be in. But we are working towards, again, trying to position ourselves as best we can in the market to try to get in there early. And so we're hoping to have starting the process by January 1st. And for whatever reasons, and I don't understand all the stuff on the financing, there are advantages to the city not doing 2 bond issues in 1 year. So that puts us into the, the preferable category. And we'll just see where everything is as we go through. Cost of the project is currently estimated at 17.5 because of the escalation that's occurred since we started the programming. I'm talking there about one additional officer. I'm not aware of any other additional positions. There might be some changes and some costs on some positions. But I do think that I have a concern that when you're as busy as we are at certain times of year, that you only have one person on duty. And I think that should change. And also we're using a lot of Jason's time and Chris's time to, cover the late shift and things that, and then they do their regular job. So I just think that the police department is at that point that we need to go ahead and up by one. Health insurance, we've been told if there's an increase, it'll be minimal. And we're making the same payments on PERS as we did last year because it was a 2-year increase. And I think that is most of what I have. And Lori, you were talking about, how we've been conservative, for a while in the past, and we definitely will be increasing our numbers from everything it looks like in 22. But what were you going to base your numbers on? I think we were talking about it yesterday, as opposed to the new high
We're
numbers.
talking about room tax.
I thought it was budget, but it might have been room tax based on the room tax. I think you were talking about using 2021 numbers.
Well, that was just for the room tax.
Okay.
That was our discussion. Yeah.
Yeah, and for projecting our revenue, again, being conservative and not taking into account any increases coming in, through this fiscal year, to stay on the conservative side. Any questions for any of us?
Joe?
Thanks. You wouldn't have thought that had you seen my PowerPoint today, not used. I looked at my PowerPoint, I thought, I'm gonna give this orally.
What's the timing on the bonds, Bruce? We're going to be able to lock those down.
Tomorrow, yeah, it'll be tomorrow. And they were pretty specific. It's like till 9:30. We have a 10:15 call. They'll make a recommendation to us, whether to go or no go kind of a thing. And then we will get all the signatures and everything on those. And there's something that happens, I think they said, Lori, that, once you've accepted it and said, okay, we're going to go ahead and do this, you have time.
Yeah.
So once they come in, it's, I think we'll be
The
fine.
verbal confirmation.
Yeah.
Okay. And how much time do you have after you get the verbal? How's that work? Do you know?
By 5 p.m.
By 5 p.m.? Yeah.
Yeah.
tomorrow.
And so, like I said, the sale will be over at 9:30.
Yeah.
They will gather the horses,
Yeah.
and then they'll talk to the city at 10:15.
Exciting day.
Every day is exciting right now.
I have a question on the school project.
Mhm.
If I think you said about 240,000 of debt services might be.
Mhm.
If the annual revenue coming in is around 400, where does that 160? Does that go into a reserve? Or is it earmarked within the fund for something, or does it build up? Or
What we don't know. It would have to be used for a TLT purpose. And so the current thought is towards operations, because we don't want to have to the degree possible, we don't want it to have to be supported by general fund. And so that looks like there would be a, considerable amount of funding there, but it could be used for other TLT purposes.
but it stays within that fund
Yeah.
or until it transfers or something like that?
No, it'll stay in that
Stay in that fund.
designated fund.
Yeah, I guess what my hesitation was, I don't know if fund means CBE only or county TLT. So that's,
It's the county
yeah,
TLT fund.
right. And so,
That you're kind of basically making that the elementary school fund,
Yes,
project.
yes.
And if the debt for doing all the physical work is 240, then there's 160 that for operations or whatever.
Yeah.
That hasn't been.
no, we're not. Yeah, again, we're just getting the numbers on the phones and things like that. So, but in going through, we anticipated that this would be the range and that some funds, might be available for the operation side for that. And I don't believe there would be any restrictions to us, using those funds for something other than the Cannon Beach project. Whatever that might be.
Just curious.
Well, does anybody have, any questions? This is for you to talk amongst yourselves and to talk to us and provide us with direction or ask us questions before you see the budget.
I also have another question on, this is just being the newbie on the budget committee, but the Affordable Housing Fund. I know that there was the commercial excise fees that went to build up and could be used, builders could submit for those to get assistance. What is the actual other part of the fund? Is it just a bucket of money that
It's the total excise tax.
comes from the
Excise tax.
construction fees?
Yes. It all goes in there. And there's a part that's dedicated to builder incentives, which I mentioned.
Yep.
72,000. And then the rest of the money in there is for the city's affordable care, affordable housing.
That's the portion I'm asking about, like, is there a project or an initiative in place, or someday there will be and that money will go towards it?
Yes, probably.
Okay.
And there's a lot of discussion right now, I think, at a regional level, or I know Jeff is working on trying to get it to a regional level. Because, our with the cost of property here and the amount that we generate, it's unlikely we're going to be able to go ahead and mesh that. But it really is a regional issue. And so we're just talking about finding ways to work together on solving that, or at least addressing it.
And that fund will be available to support whatever that affordable housing project turns out to be.
So if the county came and said, hey, we're gonna build this huge complex, it's gonna be great and everything, but every city has to chip in X amount of dollars, that's where it would come from.
My guess is where some of it would come from.
Well, yeah.
It's just not growing that fast.
It'd be our contribution.
Okay, that makes sense.
Mhm.
Because it is a hot topic, obviously.
Yeah, and I know that Brandon has more information because he's kind of been the council rep on that.
Little
Okay,
information.
yeah, but
It's all at early stages,
yeah,
but it is moving forward, just as you said, as a regional approach.
Mhm.
And I'm excited about it as the possibility.
Mhm.
Just have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah.
Jeff, I'm correct, the next meeting will be on the 1st.
We're going to be counting on the 1st, and we've also asked the housing authority for review, so trying to get that scheduled. So just trying to keep the ball going forward, and everything we've done has been positive so far. So shooting for a regional meeting in early summer. So.
Jeff is an excellent advocate for this project. Passionate.
There was a note about the digital scanning of all of our records.
Yeah,
Do we have any forecast of how long it'll be before we're caught up? I know it'll be ongoing, but there's a lot of backlog still.
and Jen, do you?
Current this year with all meeting materials. Archives are what we're it's gonna take a longer time because a lot of our archives are not typed documents. They're handwritten documents. So if it's a handwritten document, you have to have a typed label on it to make it searchable. You have to tie it to a property. And so that requires us to go through all of our history files and make sure that there's some scannable information on it. Otherwise, once you scan it, you can't find it again. So the history by location file will take a while, but we'll be able to get caught up with meeting files. And I think there's a few other boxes of land use stuff upstairs maybe that we can get caught up on.
And it's the larger plans, those kind of things, those aren't done yet, are they?
No.
No.
We're not doing that.
Yeah, what happened is that the project kind of stalled for a while because they were having trouble retrieving information. We had funding, but we didn't move forward with it until we knew what was going to be happening there.
The state has their system up functioning properly now.
They ran an update over a year ago, and when they did the update, the system worked except for the search function. So you couldn't search it. So
All right.
that kind of made a problem because I could look at the record based off of a meeting date, but I couldn't tell you, like I used to, when we were discussing horses, remember, I could search the word manure and then I can see a whole history of every time the word manure appeared in minutes. Because I did that. You couldn't search anything. So we went ahead and waited because we wanted to make sure we didn't lose any data. Because once you ship it off to them, it doesn't come back.
The
The
documents
documents,
themselves.
yeah. But they fixed it. It's good. I checked it.
Any other questions?
Beyond the police department potential headcount increases, are any other increases we're thinking of now?
Yeah, but you can't tell anybody. No, we have a contract that we entered into last year with both of our bargaining units. And the prior year, during the COVID year, they both stepped forward and said, you know, to help you, we won't do COLAs this year. And so that was, you know, I really appreciated that they did that. So we did it for the first year. And now we're in a 2-year. And I don't think anybody thinks that 2 is going to be, you know, adequate. And so we're looking to see if there's a way for us to make an adjustment to help our folks through the this inflationary period. So while it's not required, it is something that we think is the right thing to do, and we'll be talking to you and the council about that.
I have one more question, if this is right. I would imagine when the budget is presented, it's going to have something with the food tax in it looking forward. And everything I'm understand of it is that it's basically 50% to the city and 50% to the fire department. Is there going to be any additional policy around that, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, is it just literally cut it in half and here's your half and here's the city's half? Or is it going to be, you know, based on need or budgets presented to the city, or how's that gonna work?
It's essentially, I thought we were going to have a slide. Maybe there was one that I didn't see, but
Yeah.
$1,760,000 is what the projection was without beverages. And that was going to be split 2 ways for $880,000 to each entity. And we have a contract. And the way that that works is that we split costs. So, for example, we're coming up on the grant period for the PFT to get the technology. And so we're coming up on that, and that's an agreement that we said we would split. So what happens is that those come off as you know, we start at 880 if that's the number, and then these come off and go, you know, work their way down. And then that's where everybody finally ends up with. But it's structured so that we split costs and that there's a discussion before, like we can't unilaterally, nor can they just go ahead and say, well, this is a split cost. So we have that discussion first. So the number will actually be somewhat or something less than the 880, but it'll because of the expenses that we will have shared. And if it comes off of them, it comes off of us also, the 50%. And yeah, okay, yes. Projected to rise 1.76. Go to the next one. 880,000 each side. And our intention is to use the our portion to pay off the debt service on the new City Hall Police Station. The document was also written that we could use it to offset costs of infrastructure. And that could be in the form of like just paying off a project or buying a project, or turning it into debt service, which is the best way to leverage those funds. So that's what that's about. Now, I've been waiting for this news for a very long time. Holland Herbert, who is the person that we hired to do the tech review, is talk to everybody about their systems. And I said, Holland, how many applications for the grants do you think we're going to get? And she said, 5. So almost everybody's system is already capable of handling that, especially the ones that were involved, that were over $1 million companies, because they already had a tax part of the CAT tax, those kind of things. So I think that the requirements, some of them may be a little bit more as far as what the costs are, but it won't be an exorbitant cost. So I think that we'll be able to be very helpful to the people that need help.
Want to go to the water utility discussion next? Everybody satisfied with the preliminary budget discussion?
This thing.
So yeah, if you want to present that, go ahead. Yes, I forgot that we're going to do that. No, I'm sorry. I'm easily confused today.
Right.
Do we want to hold off, make that part of the presentation at the time?
During when?
I'm sorry, the presentation when we get to May 11th? Or do you want to do it today?
I can do it today.
Okay, good. I'm sorry.
Okay.
The water or the wastewater?
Water, please. Okay. Most of you have seen this PowerPoint. I presented this last year at the preliminary budget committee. And this was started with Carolyn and I working together to develop projections in order to look out over future years instead of just looking at the current budget year for capital outlay expenditures with the use of loan funding. Forecast with the use of the utility rate model that was developed by FCS Group. They are the ones that did our SDC rates. They do rate studies all the time for utilities. So we incorporated that model with my spreadsheets. About 5 years. So on this slide, okay, I'll just go over this here a little bit. So the last time we had a water rate increase was July 1, 2021, and that was as a result of this projections that you saw last year. Currently, our rate for water 3/4 inch is $24.20, or no, it was $24.20 and is now currently $25.17, and that was a 4% increase. That was 97 cents additional each month for a residential customer with a 3/4 inch meter. And with that rate, you pay $6.29 per 100 cubic feet over your allowance of 400 cubic feet. If you recall, we used to have varying levels of allowances, but we changed that structure to every customer, regardless of meter size, has 400 cubic feet allowance. That helped our revenues a lot, just making that change. And so that on top of a rate increase has helped our revenue stream quite a bit. Projections of revenue and expense for the next 5 years show a need for incremental increases to fund normal operations, expenses that are going up every year, just for operations. Know what to expect in the ensuing years. With incremental increases to rates, we're getting on track to fund capital projects. And rate increases to fund the debt service on future loans. So with every projection, you have assumptions that have to be made and a starting point where to apply those assumptions. First assumption we made was how much are people using, how much water are people using? So we look back for the period of March 21 to February 22. We know the actual consumption for that period. And we assume that going forward in our next fiscal year, the same amount of water will be consumed. So we have consumption, and then we just apply the rate to that to get the revenue stream that we need based on the assumptions that I should try to use this.
Yep.
Can't do two things at once, I guess. Hold on, wait. Oh, there we go. Okay, so the utility rate model, we start with our baseline revenues of 1.4 million. We add in personnel and materials and services costs. Then we add inflation and debt service, and then we know how much revenue is required.
Question on the debt service. That assumes a capital expenditure program based on the master plan,
Yes,
basically. To the extent we get really some significant grants available for infrastructure, are you forecasting, in essence, future grants and therefore reducing the revenue requirements for debt service? Are you tying those two together, or is that just going to always be, you can't count on it?
right. I'm not factoring any grants into this.
So any grants that come in could offset the rate increases.
It would just replace needing a loan.
Okay, well, that's,
Yeah,
would reduce those expenses.
yes, it would.
It might replace needing a loan, but the grant might be for only a part of a overall project. But it will make things better each time.
But you're not building that into your forecast.
No, I'm not. Okay. So other assumptions that we're using, we say contingency is at 20% of expenditures, assumed to be spent each year. Baseline requirements do not include any debt. From there, we include operational cost increases and debt service requirements starting in 2023 and going out to 2027. We're making the assumption that personnel goes up 7% each year. Materials and services costs are 5% each year. Debt service interest rates at 1% over a 30-year period. And the meter project, we assumed 16,000 per year for 20 years. Rusty?
Are you rethinking the interest rate and the inflation assumptions at this point?
No, not in this example.
Not the example, but
in real life?
Oh, yeah, well, the state, I think, has maintained those.
yeah, and
I mean, we,
kind of
it's
alluded
based
to,
on the best knowledge I have at the time.
Right.
So.
yeah. And we anticipated that we would continue working with Business Oregon under the program that we've been working. And then they announced they were going to change it. So it's kind of a mix because they might increase interest rates, but significantly increase the principal forgiveness. We really don't know how that's going to work, but right now that's the information we have. And I believe, and Karen, I think they said that if we move forward on the first phase, we would have the 1% for 30 years.
Well, our phase one and phase two is locked in.
Yeah.
So that's a given. The only thing that's up in the air is phase three, and we might get the greater principal forgiveness, but the interest rate may be higher. The 1% opportunity is going away.
Yeah.
So that'll be what Lori may need to recalculate when she's looking at her phase three numbers here. One and two are locked in.
Mm-hmm.
So they're 1% for 30 years, and we've already got the principal forgiveness identified.
And the beauty of the model that we're talking about is we can now change any of those variables and see what the impact is. Before it was, we really didn't have that nailed down. So, your point is well taken. If something changes, we can make modification on that.
Well, if interest rate goes up, then in theory, inflation will go down
Mhm.
as well. So you may get an
Mhm.
offset there as well.
Yeah.
As time moves on. Okay. Thank you.
After including debt service requirements, there is a deficit created, which is the revenue that will need to be raised in the form of a rate increase that's summarized on the following page. So, and then this is where the utility rate model comes in again. There's a kind of have to put the number in what you think it will be to raise the revenue, because it's going to give you the revenue. Once you put a rate in, it calculates the revenue that rate raises. So what you do is you just go in and you keep typing in the number that you think it'll be until you see your revenue number pop up. That's how this works. I mean, yeah. So then you'll see here.
I have a question about this, the water rate projections. You have a rate per cubic foot over the 400 cubic feet allowance. And it goes like to in 5 years, it goes to $10.19 per cubic foot over the
100 cubic feet.
Well, this one says per cubic foot.
Oh, okay. Well, I can.
So it's per 100.
Yes, it is.
It's a heck of a lot more. Okay. Good. I looked at that this morning. I thought,
No, that's wrong.
It's not even a glass of water.
There's not enough room to write all those words. No.
well, but it does make a difference when
I know.
looking at it. Yeah.
Yes, of course. So that's what we did. We see now that we need this much revenue to fill the gap. And we just derived that from the utility rate model. And we come up with, in 2023, a new base rate of 27.18 and a per 100 cubic foot allowance of $6.79. And that's an 8% increase. And so forth going out to 2027, you'll see the percentages down there at the bottom in the forecast. And if you look here, the dollar amount of the increase on the base rate for year 2023 is $2.01. 2024, it's $2.17, so on until you get out to 2027, where it's $5.32. So the last slide, I have the word "but" in there. So just knowing this, and we don't use beginning fund balance in our calculations here. When Carolyn and I were developing this, we thought that was the best way to go. But what has happened, like I said earlier, we have a big ending fund balance that I'm projecting at June 30, 2022 of roughly $850,000. So there's an opportunity here to take some different approaches on how or if we have a rate increase and how we utilize those funds. So I'm going to be sitting down with Bruce and we're going to talk about our options and see what we want to propose to the budget committee and then have a discussion about it. And so I don't know the answer to that right now, but we will see what we can do. You know, maybe just leave some of it in ending fund balance and let it offset each year's worth of rate increases. But then you get into a cycle of where you're not getting a rate increase anymore. And so people start becoming accustomed to that maybe. So there's some real decisions, you know, and policy that need to be decided, I think, surrounding that. So that's where we're at with the water utility. I did the same thing for wastewater. And it's completely the same methodology. So we probably don't need to go through that again because it's the same approach. So we could probably go to page, it starts to get the results. Page 11, I guess. You see the exact same thing, different numbers. different rates. Wastewater has a rate than water. And so you can see I need to fix that per cubic foot too. Our current rate is $27.11 and our 100 is $6.78. And then so the projection for 2023 is $28.47 as a base rate. And so on when we get out to 2027, it's $5.59. So you can see the dollar amount on the base rate. 36. 2024, it's $1.89, and if you go out to 2027, it's $2.01. These are much lower because we haven't forecast as many projects in wastewater as we have in water. And the same, however, projecting a large balance as of June 30. It's coincidentally the same number. I don't know how that happens, but I will be double checking and triple checking these numbers. So again, the same policy decisions surrounding wastewater.
Just to comment on the water rate projections, and you're talking about having some surplus funds that you maybe equalize or levelize the rate of increase. It kind of jumped out at me that the percent increase each year, well, 2023, it was 8%, 2024 is 8%, 2025 goes at 13%, 2026 back down 7%. That might be an area that you might anticipate moving forward, the surplus to smooth out that rate of increase. Because it gets everybody all excited and suddenly there's a large increase and then go back and we'll reduce it next year. Just need to smooth it out. That seemed like an obvious year to take a good hard look at. But any other questions for Lori? We get through everything on your all right. Bruce, do you have anything else you'd like to add to the discussion for the budget?
Just if there's any direction, I mean, we talked about the assumptions that we're looking to make, potential on personnel costs, and we've got multiple big projects that are coming up and how we're going to pay for them. If there's any questions there, and trying to keep the head count as close to current as possible. If there's any comments or questions or whatever.
Alicia has her hand up.
Okay.
Hi. Whatever happened with the restroom project?
It's yeah.
Karen paid her to say that.
I know. I saw a lot of emails going back and forth, and so I figured that's what was going on. We don't have a direct funding source for that yet. It is something that I think that we could use TLT funds for.
Yes.
There's arguments that you can. Up until recently, we haven't had excess TLT funds. So potentially, the funds that might be left over, as Greg was talking about from the Cannon Beach Elementary project, those are funds that we might be able to do. And when we look at the amount of money that's available and the time frame that we need these things in, I tend to look at them, putting it on a bond issue, and then just using that to pay off the debt service, as opposed to trying to save $100,000 a year until we have enough to build the restroom. So But that's something that we can look at now because we actually have some funds available. Or we're projecting them anyway. And if you hadn't have said something, Karen would have said something for the third time today.
He was jumping up and down back there.
You're welcome, but you didn't ask me to do it. I just asked myself.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that would be a great use of lodging tax dollars because that is a huge impact to our community, the visitors, right? And not all of those visitors are necessarily staying in hotels. I realize some of them are day visitors too, but I think if it's an eligible use of funds and we have a surplus in that area, I for one would be very supportive of that use to get that project going.
Yeah, and it's not clear that that is a tourism related facility. So in some cases, somebody has to take the step forward to kind of set precedent.
You say it's not clear. It's just not clear in the legislation. It's clear to anybody observing it. The tourist.
Yeah, but the legislation kind of overrides my opinion in every case, but it doesn't meet the people. Somebody will come here from 50 miles or more and spend a night here.
Just to use our restrooms.
Just to use the right, and that's the criteria that we're supposed to match it to. But there's a lot of discussion at a conference yesterday with the county, because the county is also trying to do a big push on trying to change the 70-30 distribution. And in one of the comments that it was a member of the tech committee, Julie, and she said to me, we're spending so much money promoting the product, but we're not spending any money on the product. And that's absolutely true. When you look at the condition of the restrooms and all these other things, our cost for cleanup, our cost for police, those are, no, just promote it. And so, but they have a very strong lobby, the Orla does.
Be a battle.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, there's cities that have done it already.
Yeah.
So it's,
Yeah, and that's what we look at for, who else has gone and were they challenged? We were the most recent one to do a PFT and it was a challenge. So that's what everybody kind of watches, but.
What is their suggestion for percentage change?
Somebody said just do a complete split, so it's 30-70, but I don't know what the number would come out to be. And it seems that the coast has a different situation than a lot of the smaller cities inland, and that they need to be promoted and we don't. We're gonna have the people regardless. So it's hard to get the legislature to come down on a position. But 30-70 was suggested.
Well, it's also more difficult for towns on the coast because they don't have the other funding resources
Mhm.
that they can draw from, say, larger cities.
Yeah, yes, and then, but even like smaller cities, but the bigger cities, yes, they've got the capability of doing these things.
Well, presumably, if you don't have much tourism, you don't have the need for all these.
Right, but they want the revenue for, like, even if it's at 30%, if they
Sure.
collect anything. Was it Warrenton is kind of in that situation that they really don't have a lot of hotels, and so makes a big difference for them in trying to put their budget together versus us.
On the other hand, they have big box stores and more housing, so they have more property tax, probably higher ratio of property taxes.
Right, sure. Yeah. But specifically on the requirement for tourism-related facilities or promotion, we don't need the promotion where some other places might. So that just because they're going to come here anyway.
so this is kind of why I brought up the comment about the 50-50 split on the food tax.
Mhm.
Because if you look at Ashland and Yahats who've done it, they broke it down into percentage goes to A, B, C, and D, and whatever those things were.
Yeah.
And this might be getting too into the weeds, but if there's a $17 million police and city hall, I don't know what the debt service is on that, but there might be some left over in that 800,000 to do other things. But if, and then there's a fire department that all of a sudden gets $800,000, it's been operating for 50 some odd years without $800,000 a year. Do they really need $800,000 a year? And can some of that go to city project A, B, C, and D? If, you know, 1 year you need $800,000, next year you need two.
Mhm.
Is that being looked at all?
It was brought up as a discussion. And we ultimately decided not to pursue that.
And I mean, the same thing would go for the city too. If once the city hall project is over, you know, where does that money go?
Yeah.
Long ways off, obviously.
30 years, yeah.
The agreement can be reopened at any time.
But it can't.
Laura, do you have any idea when we might start? I mean, this hasn't even started yet, but when we might start seeing projections for the PFT? When is that?
Well, we are asking them to give us their annual revenues that will be subject to the tax on their registration form. That's been interesting to see. And if everyone fills it in, might maybe get an estimate early on of what it might be collectively.
Okay, when you say early on, you mean like what?
Well,
like the
I guess
order or something?
they have till July 1 to register with us, so it would be around that time.
The first quarter in September, and then October, we should have the real numbers,
Okay.
or the end of October.
So are you calling that a PFT? Food tax?
Prepared food tax.
Prepared. I was wondering what the P was, prepared.
But I think our ordinance says prepared food sales tax.
Okay, maybe.
Yes, just doesn't.
But it doesn't matter. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Okay, anything through with the discussion of the agenda? Open it for any good of the order.
Mm-hmm. Coffee with the counselors next Monday.
I was waiting for that. You always have that. All right. Meeting's adjourned.
All right, thank you, everybody, and thank you for being on this committee.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rusty, for your